So in 2018, I said that I was going to read 36 books. That was my only goal this year, and I read 36 books. Also, the number of times I've filmed this video is not zero, and there are fire trucks in the background this time because Santa's coming. I don't think I'm going to read 10 more books. Like, I don't think I was going to read like 40 this year, and I still don't. Without further ado, these are books numbers 31 through 36. Once again, I'm going to break it down in like 4 different sections. The first group of books I read for my philosophy of self and other class. I read one more Shakespeare play for my Shakespeare perform class, and I read one last novel for my senior seminar class, and then I read 2 books for fun. So that's 6. The first 2 books I read for my philosophy of self and other class were The Transcendence of the Ego by Jean-Paul Sartre and On the Problem of Empathy by Edith Stein. Sartre's work is about how there isn't a transcendental ego, how our consciousness is just like conscious experience of things in the world, and one of these things is the self that we create, and it's really interesting. The final work we read for my philosophy class was On the Problem of Empathy by Edith Stein. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross was a German Jewish philosopher who converted to Roman Catholicism and became a discalced Carmelite nun. She is a canonized martyr and saint, and the co-patron saint of Europe. And she died in Auschwitz. On the Problem of Empathy talks about how empathy is different than sympathy. Her main contention is that empathy, lots of times when we talk about empathy, we're making the other into just like another me, and so she wanted to create this version of empathy that kept the otherness of the other person like very distinct. And also she talked about in that book how the lived body is just like an expression of all of our thoughts and feelings and beliefs. That's like a very watered down talk about like what her thing is, but I found studying her in class like very, very interesting. Next book I read was Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare, which is about a merchant and he's in Venice and he loses all of his money. No opinions about it, gonna be honest. No opinions about Merchant of Venice. We did our whole presentation on Merchant of Venice and it's very bad. And the final book we read for my senior sem class was Sing Unburied Sing by Jasmine Ward. I found this book, as well as the other 3 books we read in my senior sem class, to be very depressing. Sing Unburied Sing is about Jojo. He's 13, and they go pick up Jojo and Kayla's dad at Parchment Prison. Parchment Prison is it's a Mississippi State Penitentiary, and used to be a work farm, might be a work prison now. One of these like prison farms that popped up all across the southern United States, and in which, incarcerated black men at a staggeringly higher rate than they ever incarcerated white men. Parchment is just as much of a character in this book as any of the other characters, including the 2 ghosts, Given and Richie. I think at the end of the book is perplexing and terrifying in a lot of ways. It really feels like there's like a lack of resolution, which I think is on purpose because that's what I wrote my paper on. I read 2 books for fun. I read Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I was so disappointed. I finished this like middle of November, and I listened to it on audiobook. I didn't like it. I knew kind of going in that I wasn't going to care about most of the characters besides Astrid, because the movie, which came out in August, I pretty much only cared about Astrid, who I care about her story. She was the only character that was written with like nuance. I had like a problem with she had a really bad like British accent and like no affect, and I like don't like audiobooks. I also realized I don't like audiobooks. I think like one of my major problem with the book itself was that whenever it was describing like a scene or a new character or like a context for a relationship, it wouldn't just like give you a little bit of context. It would dump all of the information that would be possible to have at you in the same like 2 paragraphs, and it was so info dumpy. It was like hard to handle. So I gave it 3 stars, but I really think 3 stars is generous. I will say I like Rachel and I like Nick, and I think they're like a cute couple or whatever, and they've got things to work out, but I like the movie was like beautiful, and I really felt like it resolved the conflict better and made Eleanor Young less to be like less of like a supervillain mom, and you know that's important. I think like we shouldn't be like treating our in-laws like they're crazy all the time. The other book I read was A Conspiracy of Kings by Megan Whalen Turner. A Conspiracy of Kings is the 4th book in her Queen's Thief series. They're technically all standalone books, but like also they're not standalone books. Of all of the books that I've read so far, it's the only one that I think you could read as a standalone book. Although A Conspiracy of King goes back a lot in the timeline, it would give you a lot of the context that you would need, that you get from reading the other 3 books that come before it. Although I think like if you just like picked up A Conspiracy of Kings, you'd be like very lost. I enjoyed it immensely. This book, like The Thief, and I'm assuming like Thick as Thieves, is written primarily in first person point of view. It's basically an epistolary novel, and it's told in letters, in like basically 2 letters or a series of like memoirs, from Sophist to the Queen of Edith. And the one section in the middle that's told from 3rd person point of view is much more compelling. And I'm trying to decide if that's because I don't like first person point of view, if Megan Whalen Turner is just like an astronomically better writer when she's writing in 3rd person, or because that was the section that Jen was in. Truly, the 3rd option is very likely. I will say about A Conspiracy of Kings, and really about all of the books thus far, is that she's so good at like building a world, keeping things hidden that need to be hidden, building suspense, and then not even like realizing that you're like in suspense, making the characters feel like real people. Like they just all have like complex, nuanced like personalities and motivations, and I just 4 stars. 4 stars for A Conspiracy of Kings. I still am going to probably finish Thick as Thieves in 2018. That's 37. I don't know if you can see it, but somewhere up there is my Sierra with Lewis book, and I'm probably gonna finish that. So that's 38. But 39 and 40, A Wrinkle in Time and The Giver, maybe. And you know, in that case, if I do read those 4 books, I'll let you know before the end of the year. But I guess I'll see you in 2018. 2019. Oh, that's the year I'm graduating.